Welcome back, folks. We are about to start on our Analogous color scheme painting. I've done my brainstorming sheet. I've made sure that I've got 3 neighboring colors together, 3 or 4. So I'm doing blue, green, blue, blue, violet, and violet. I might have a little tint of violet in there, so I've got my white ready to go. I'd like to have this nearby so I can refer back to it. I also want my color wheel so I can check my color mixing. I want my 3 primaries, and since I'm using white, I've got white there too. I've got water, I've got my palette, I've got my brushes, and I've got my paper towel. And then I've drawn my picture on one of the larger pieces, the 9x12s of our tag board. I can go horizontal, I can go vertical. I'm gonna go vertically today, but you can do yours either way. I've taken my kneaded eraser and kind of cleaned up any sketch marks so that I'm ready with my drawing. All right, you can paint this lots of different ways. You could make it a little flatter, like this section here, how there's not a lot of color mixing. You can do more color mixing and texture like we did on the actual part of the succulent, or that I did. It's really up to you. So you can do it any style you want. The first thing you should do is mix your colors. So whatever your colors are going to be, I'm going to mix my blue-green, my blue-violet, and my violet, and I'm gonna have a nice big vat of them. So I'm gonna have kind of a big pool of each in my palette. So let's go ahead and do that first. So I made a rookie mistake here and I added way too much red to begin. So instead of having blue violet, I've got a lot of red violet. I could pivot and I could make my picture red violet violet and blue violet if I wanted, if I didn't want to waste any paint. Or I can just keep adding blue. Instead of adding blue to those big wells, I added it in a smaller well, so I have more control over the color, and so I'm not wasting my paint. But there's a nice violet. Okay. So don't do what I did. Start with smaller quantities. I think I tried to make things look efficient in the videos, and sometimes it doesn't always work. Okay, so that's a pretty nice blue violet. Pretty happy with that. And you can actually try it on yours. You can do a little bit of a dab of it. I'm gonna pull some of this into here to see if I can get a good violet. Still some of that blue. Put it in here. And give it a good stir. Sometimes there are hidden reserves of color, and so you don't really know what you have until you give it a really good mix. And still a little bit more. This is still kind of a red violet. And it's a process. It takes some time. Getting closer, still a little bit more. I might need a little bit more blue. Sometimes it's easiest to check there. You can get a better sense of the color. Okay, it's looking good. This one I'll make my tint, so maybe I'll pull a little bit of it to the side. I want to make it more of a true violet so I can add some white to it, so I'll add a little bit more blue. I didn't try to mess with that big one because then I'd have to spend a lot of paint to get it to be the right color, and I don't want to use up all my paint. So if you have the wrong color, just pull it into another well. There we go. I'm trying to make this match my violet. It's pretty close. And then I can add a little bit of white and make it my tint. Tiny bit more blue. It's a nice color. I don't want to add too many tints and shades because we're not doing a monochromatic, but if you want to have one or two, that's fine. And if I'm having a hard time getting that light enough, pull it into another well, and then that white is going to go a lot further. Okay. I think I'm going to paint my snail's shell and body before I move on to that background, because I'm starting to use up all my wells. So I'll do my blue violet, my violet, and then my violet tint, and then I can go into the background. So I'll speed up through this process. I might make this a little more textured. We'll just see how it goes. Remember, you can make it look flat like this, or you can make it look textured. It's up to you. All right, have some fun painting. We'll check in a minute. Okay, I finished painting my snail. So I've got blue, blue, violet, violet. You can see I changed my mind and I didn't do the stripes. It wasn't really working out for me, so I did a more simplified version. And I might go in and tinker with that a little bit. There's a little bit of texture on the snail. I kind of like how it looks bumpy like the snail, and I like how there's some texture on the shell. All right, so the next thing, I've got violet, blue, so I'm gonna do blue, green for the background. Now between these colors, I did not wash out my brush very well and it got kind of crusty. So I wanna remind you to always really, really rinse your brush. You can tell if it's clean when you kind of run it along the side of your water and no color comes out, or if you dab it on a paper towel and no color comes out. So really important. Making my blue-green. It's better to start with little bits at a time so you don't end up wasting paint. I felt pretty confident about my proportions. Let's see how I did. Oh, it's a pretty true green. So I'm going to pull some of it into this well with the blue and stir and stir and stir until I get a nice blue-green. So I can tell right now that that's a good blue-green because it's definitely on the bluer side, which I like, especially since I'm going with the blue theme. I'm not going towards yellow. Yep, that looks good. So now I'm going to paint. I can do smooth, I can do texture, I could have some areas where it's lighter, some areas where it's darker. I'm just going to see where it takes me. It's all about having fun and being in the moment and making decisions as you go along. All right, so now I'm going to paint my background. Quick trick in case you forgot to put a piece of paper under the edge of your painting paper so that you can paint right off the edge and you don't have to worry about making a mess. All right, let's do it. Okay, there we go. I might fool around with the shell a little bit more, but overall I have a painting that fills the space, that uses at least 3 analogous colors. I'm going to want to make sure that I clean my palette really well. I'm going to want to make sure that I clean my brushes really well, clean them and dry them. You will appreciate it the next time you go to do a painting. I'm going to let this dry. When I photograph it, I might want to do that trick where I roll the tape on the back, and that will make it go flat to the surface and let me get a really good photograph. The other thing is, if I wanted to, when it's dry, I could outline it with a black felt marker. Sometimes if it's not just as tidy as you'd like it to be and you want it to be a little tighter and cleaner, that can be a good trick. So I think what I'll do is I'll probably let this dry and then I'll photograph it before and after so you can see what each of them look like. Now remember, yours might look and feel totally different than mine. That's great. All we're looking for is a picture that uses analogous colors. So however you want to interpret that, great. Have a good time, experiment, take risks, try as best you can not to judge yourself. Whatever you do is going to be fantastic. All right, have a good time working with analogous colors.